In this video, I'm going to demonstrate using the HLOOKUP and the VLOOKUP functions. And you can kind of make an analogy to these two functions with, say, for example, a library catalog. You go to the library catalog and you look for a certain title or a certain author or a certain subject, and the catalog gives you call numbers for the books, and then you would go to the stacks and find the book with that call number. A lookup function works in a similar manner. So with a lookup function, you need a lookup value in the worksheet where you're going to put the lookup function, which will be the diagnosis worksheet for us. And then somewhere in your workbook, you need to have a lookup table. So in this particular workbook, the author has chosen to put the tables on a separate worksheet, and it helps to with the lookup tables to put them, to either give them a range name or to put them in a table. It's just easier to get them into the formulas. So the first thing that I'm going to do is do some modifications to these lookup tables and then give each of them a name. So one thing I need to do is to make sure that the first column or row is sorted in either ascending or descending order, depending on what type of a match I'm looking for. And we'll talk about the match here in just a minute when we do one of the functions. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Home tab, to the Editing group, and sort and filter. And I'm going to sort from A to Z for this particular little table. Notice that I've selected only columns A and B because that's where the actual information is stored, even though the words are hanging over into C, D, and E. There's actually nothing in those columns, and it could in fact mess up my lookup function if I select those. Okay, so I've still got that information selected. I'm going to go ahead and give this a range name, and I'm going to call it T codes. And I'm going to press enter to make sure that that range name gets stored. Then I'm going to copy the codes and paste them down here with the names of the physicians. So I'm going to click copy and click in cell B15. I'm going to come up here to the paste button and click the down arrow, and under the paste options, I'm going to choose transpose, and you can see the preview down in the worksheet. It's changed it from a column orientation to a row orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and click. Press escape to get rid of the marquee border. And then I'm going to go ahead and select B15 through J16. And I'm going to give that range a name, and that will be called T doctors. So now my lookup tables are ready to go. I'm going to switch to the diagnoses worksheet. Here in the code column, you can see that there is a letter code. And if I switch back to the diagnoses and reference, you'll see that that letter code corresponds to a diagnosis. What I want Excel to do ultimately is look at this code in column I on the diagnosis worksheet, go over here to this little table, find that code, and copy basically, or pull that diagnosis out of column B and put it in column J on this worksheet. So let's go ahead and get started with our lookup function. Because the diagnosis table is set up in columns, I'm going to use a vertical lookup function because columns are vertical. So I'll go to the Formulas tab to look up and reference and choose VLOOKUP. So the first function argument is the lookup value, which is the code column here in this worksheet. Then I'm going to go to table array, and table array refers to the lookup table that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and press F3 on the keyboard, and I'm going to choose T codes. And my final required argument is the column index number. And the column index number is the column where I'm going to get the information that in the lookup table, where I'm going to get the diagnosis information or the diagnosis name. So if you'll visualize that table, the diagnosis name is in the second column, so you're going to put 2 here, column 2. Range lookup can either be an approximate match or it can be an exact match. So if I'm looking for an approximate match, I don't have to put anything in the range lookup box. If I want an exact match, I would type in false. So I'm basically done with this function. I'm going to click OK. And you can see all of the diagnoses are now in my worksheet as I wanted. And I'm just going to make that column a little bigger so they'll fit. And because this information on this worksheet is set up in an Excel table, you can tell by the filter arrows and by the Table Tools tab, that function fills automatically. Okay, so in the reference we're going to put in another lookup function that will look up the patient's doctor. And if you'll remember, the doctor table is set up in rows. So this time we're going to use an HLOOKUP function. The H stands for horizontal because rows are horizontal. This time I'm going to type the function out. So I'm going to start out by typing an equal sign and an H, start typing the name of the function. And the arguments are exactly the same. It's just the orientation of the information in the table that has changed. So my lookup value will still be code. I need to type a comma to change to the table array argument. And so I can either press F3 and use paste names, or I can start typing the name of the named range, and there it is, T doctors, and I can just press tab to accept that, comma. Now I'm on the row index number, and it's still 2 because the doctor's names are in row 2, and then a comma, and this time we're going to do an exact match. So the one advantage of typing out the function is that it gives you these two arguments, and all you have to do is double click on it or um, click on it and press the tab key, and you've got the argument entered. You don't have to type it in. Okay, so I'm done with my function. I can go ahead and press enter. And you can see now that I've got all of the doctor names entered according to the code in the worksheet here. So those are lookup functions. They are handy for doing things like grades, for doing something like you just did in this worksheet, for pricing, and various other business applications.